Welcome to the T1 Determined podcast, where we bridge the conversation of type 1 diabetes and endurance. I'm Joseph Anthony Marcello, a runner, a weightlifter, a mountaineer, and athlete. As someone living with T1D, I'm on a mission to uncover and share science-backed information that drives optimal performance and longevity. And as a storyteller, I'm here to explore and share incredible feats in T1D sports physiology. Let's tackle this together. On today's episode, I am beyond thrilled to talk with former NBA player and T1D athlete Gary Forbes. Gary is a former professional basketball player who has played across the globe. Over his 12-year career, he's played in the National Basketball Association for the Denver Nuggets, Houston Rockets, Toronto Raptors, and Brooklyn Nets. Gary completed his career playing overseas for leagues in China, Israel, Italy, and Vietnam. Gary is one of 3 NBA players in history to have played at the highest level while living with T1D. He is the only one to be African American and comes from a family of immigrants, having been born in Panama. His determination and strong will allowed him to achieve his lifelong dream, to become an NBA basketball player. Gary has now taken his talents to the world of literature with the creation of The Soul Survivors, a comic book series aiming to raise awareness about the existence of those around the world living with chronic health conditions. His mission is to inspire, motivate, and champion children and adults alike that a diagnosis does not have to be a barrier to success, yet a springboard. It was genuinely an honor to learn about what drives his passions and missions. You will find our conversation extremely impactful. As we build this podcast from the ground up and face every slope head-on, your support is crucial for our continued growth. Wherever you're listening, please share this episode and others with anyone you think might benefit. Follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and X at T1D_endurance, on Facebook at T1 Determined, and visit our website, t1determined.net. There, you'll find all our podcast episodes, blog posts, and details about our documentary projects, including our upcoming feature film, Low Blood Sugar at High Altitude. This film chronicles my journey climbing Denali, North America's tallest peak, with T1D, and our vital research into how our bodies perform under extreme exertion at altitude. Discover how you can join this expedition at t1determined.net/LBSHA. Before we dive in, a quick but vital disclaimer. I am not a medical doctor. The topics discussed and the recommendations shared by myself and our guests are personal experiences and not medical prescriptions. My aim is to foster a community where we can openly share therapy methods and management techniques that work for individuals. I believe comprehensive T1D education and well-rounded glucose management come from learning and listening to a multitude of experiences. You'll hear various approaches, but please remember that not every method or technique will work for everyone. Use this information in a way that best suits you. And always consult your healthcare team and medical professionals before making any changes to your daily routines, management, or therapies. And now, my conversation with Gary Forbes. Gary, thank you very much for taking the time to talk to me on the T1 Determined podcast today. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you immensely for having me, man. I appreciate it. We had a little technical difficulties getting set up, but we persevered through, right?
Yes, sir. And that's all about perseverance. And your story has perseverance written all over it, from your days at UMass to your days in the NBA and playing internationally. And obviously, you are indeed a type 1 diabetic. So I would love to dive into a little bit about how you got diagnosed, when you got diagnosed. I believe you were already playing basketball when you got diagnosed, so I'd love to learn a little bit about the transition period, if you knew it was coming, and what you did to, as we said earlier, persevere.
That was after my freshman year at University of Virginia. I was about 19 years old. Had the, normal symptoms, constant, urination, constant thirst. It was something that I was aware was, in my family DNA. My father
Mhm.
was also a type 1 diabetic. My grandfather passed away from complications with type 1. So I knew it was something that was in my DNA, but I didn't think that it was something that I would, should be concerned about. But yeah, it was had the constant the typical um you know typical symptoms. I lost weight. I lost about 20 pounds in 1 week. And when I got tested, I was told by one of the doctors at the University of Virginia, forget his name, but he did say, he was like, oh, you may need to put a lot of focus on your health, and maybe, put basketball to the, back burner or to the side, and,
Mhm.
focus on health. Luckily for me, I'm, very stubborn and, very optimistic as well. So I was able to use type 1 diabetes and, dealing with this health challenge, for the betterment of my dreams, and trying to, get to the NBA.
That's wonderful, and I think something that's unique is that you were told that you need to focus on your health, but playing a sport like basketball, especially with T1D, if anything, that helps improve your health.
Yeah, 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 yeah. But I do recall in 2008 diabetes awareness, and it wasn't as prevalent as it is now.
Mhm.
Obviously, social media was like different. So I understand the time that we were in, and you know, there's only been three players in the history of the NBA to play, in the NBA. I'm one of them. So it wasn't something that was normal or something that you saw a lot. So I get from his perspective and a lot of people's perspective, it was something that we haven't seen before. So when I was diagnosed in 2004, I was still doing the finger pricks, and I actually just been on a CGM for almost 2 years now. Maybe,
Okay.
yeah, maybe like a year and a half, 2 years.
What was playing basketball initially like as you were so you got out of the hospital, you're down 20 pounds. At what point were you mid-season at Virginia? Were
No, actually, it was I was diagnosed during the summer for
Okay.
my after freshman to sophomore year. I actually just went to the University of Virginia earlier, like a week earlier before school started. Got tested. I was able to meet with the doctors and nurses in the labs at the sports facility. And I remember they were trying to teach me how to give myself the saline injections with water.
Yeah.
I was very hesitant and afraid of needles. I was like, oh man, is there a pill that I can take, or is there something else that I can, drink or something like that I don't have to take needles? So I remember the next day, before going to class, I had to take my insulin, and I'm sitting there with the vial and the syringe, and I was like, man, I can't do this. I don't want to do this. I'm, afraid of needles. And then having to do it yourself. I recall missing class the whole day, but, I was able to, overcome my fear of needles and be able to do that. But yeah, in 2004, it was, pricking your finger, 4 or 5 times a day. And it was something that I was aware of watching my father do it.
Yeah.
So it wasn't anything, new or something that I didn't see. And
Yeah.
it wasn't something
But
that
still
wasn't
a challenge
right, right,
nonetheless.
right. Yeah, still a challenge. I was fortunate to have the father that I did, and he was able to instill that confidence, belief, and optimism. So, yeah, I knew I was able to meet that.
That's really great. And thinking about your basketball career at that moment, did you use that as motivation to really learn it? Did it take you a while to understand that, hey, if I don't control this, my basketball performance may suffer, but if I do, it may improve?
Right. So during like the first year, I guess it's that honeymoon period. So
Yeah.
it wasn't really a change for me. I just had to take one shot a day. So I was misdiagnosed at first. I was diagnosed with type 2 before transferring to University of Massachusetts and re-diagnosed, and now had to take two insulin injections. But in the first year, I was just taking Lantus, throughout the whole season, and still ate around the same, things. Nothing was, no low blood sugar episodes, nothing like that. So it seemed very, for me, it was like, oh, this is, very controllable. I didn't have any scares or anything like that during my first, year managing type 1 diabetes.
That's a great way for it to start out because that
Mhm.
doesn't mentally deter you.
Yeah.
And as you said, you then transferred to the University of Massachusetts, which I have several friends that have graduated, and
Uh,
my mom has graduated from the University of Massachusetts as well.
yes.
And you had quite the basketball career at UMass for
Hmm.
the Minutemen, if you'd want to touch upon that real quick.
Oh man, it was amazing. We're still in the group chat to this day from with my team
That's
from
awesome.
UMass. It was a great experience being close to home as well. Great group of guys, great medical staff, great team, great school. Was just super fortunate to be in that space and being able to have the basketball career that I had there and to meet the people that I did, especially to help me with, managing type 1 diabetes. As the, second and third years were a little bit different than the first year.
Once the honeymoon period was over and you realize, hey, this is here to stay, it's not as you reach the point where you probably needed more insulin. Your
Right.
management started changing. What
Mhm.
did that look for you while playing at UMass?
Yeah, like I said, kudos to the medical staff there. I was always having to check during practices, 2, 3 times during practice.
Yeah.
Had a journal that I had to, make sure I kept to so that the, medical staff understood or they were studying, what foods did to my blood sugars and times of practice and things like that. Um, so yeah, it was I wouldn't say easy, but it was, I had the right people around me to help me guide and, maneuver through this challenge. Definitely had to take a lot more insulin than, the first year, having to take two different insulins now. The Obviously the practicing 2 times a day, and then just having the goal to want more than, just be average. Those, extra workouts and those things played a factor into it. I did have to sometimes maybe go to the side during the timeout just to drink some Powerade to make sure
Yeah.
the levels are good. Um, yeah, just
Were you comfortable with going to the sidelines, understanding, saying if your blood sugar was lower just to check it? Did you feel a kind of, because I mean, speaking for myself, at least as a type 1 diabetic, and when I first got diagnosed, I was really shy. I didn't want to really tell anybody.
right.
And I was afraid, especially during team sports, to be that one who had low blood sugar who had to stop playing.
So it was cool. I'm a very like I'm introvert already.
Yeah.
Maybe in public I used to be maybe nervous to necessarily prick my finger or give myself injection in front of anybody. But for some reason that with my basketball team and the guys, half of the guys were from New York, half of the guys were from New England. We had a really tight bond. It was like a brotherhood. So it wasn't nothing that I was afraid of. They would actually joke on me and, kind of like and teasing in a way and kind of egg me on. It's like, oh man, he's taking a break. He's just tired. He's just like faking or whatever. But
Yeah.
it wasn't anything that,
All in good nature.
yeah, yeah, it was just super all in good nature. Yeah, it wasn't anything that I was afraid of doing. I had a good feeling of when my blood sugar would be low as well as high. I had a really good, I guess, a connection with how my body felt and what kind of practices did to my glucose. And then I had the doctors who were super on top of me after every drill. It's like, looking, Gary, you okay? Or come, pulling me to the side to prick my finger or anything like that. So
I have two questions, two-part question. One is, it seems like your teammates were wonderful. You had a
mhm.
wonderful experience playing with them, and the doctors, they all contribute to your support. My question is for those who are newly diagnosed or those who are still learning to play sports with type 1 diabetes, how important is having support around you? Finding those people who uplift you. And then my second question to the part of that is on top of the group of people and your support, how important is it to have trust within yourself, as you said, how you personally feel and
Yeah.
having that be a balancing act?
I think with having a community for support is very important, and it's not always the people that you're necessarily looking for. You could find inspiration or support in something that's completely, totally different from managing type 1 diabetes. It could be how someone manages their business or has their car detailed. And you can take there's a saying that greatness always leaves clues. So, there's something that you can take from pretty much any experience and tie it into managing type 1 diabetes or just being healthy and well in general. And then to answer the second part of the question to, how would how to get, I guess, that feeling of being comfortable with yourself. I'm big on optimism. I don't see. I've spoken to a lot of diabetes or a few diabetes conferences, and I guess it's something where it is diabetes is definitely challenging, but I think people miss or don't understand how powerful they are themselves to manage type 1 diabetes. I kind of took it as type 1 diabetes made me a healthier or aware of how much health and wellness is important to to this one body that I have. So, it made me make sure I get the right amount of rest. Obviously, I had basketball, which is something that took away, I guess, the possibilities of all these mental struggles that some people may have with managing type 1 diabetes or um you know the whole stigma and things like that. So I had an outlet with basketball, and that could be something that is an advice for a lot of people managing type 1 diabetes. Look for something that's an outlet that takes away from the constant thinking and overthinking of counting carbs and what does this terminology mean or things like that. So I was able to use basketball. It's something that, like you said, it already keeps you healthy. I'm working
Mhm.
out, exercising, eating the right foods to be the best athlete. And then on top of that, I enjoy the 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 journey of becoming as healthy as possible.
Yeah.
I give an analogy. It's like if you were driving a Rolls Royce, a Lamborghini, or one of these cars, what kind of gas would you put in it? It's
Yep.
premium, like the best. So
Yep.
it's almost the same thing with managing your health. You want to put the right thoughts, the most positive thoughts, the most positive words, ideas, food, water, sleep. So it's all these things to make this machine, this vessel, work to its optimum level. And I think, where you're putting doubt and fear or even looking at situations as the worst possible case scenario, that does affect on your body. And I'm sure how, your emotions and your energy does, play an effect in your, glucose and things like that and how your day is.
Completely, and it's extremely tough sometimes, but I personally believe it's the better path to go, as you said, putting premium gas into your nicer car. I remember
Mhm.
when I was first diagnosed, the first question I had in the hospital was if I could ever climb again, and a nurse came in with an article about a type 1 diabetic who made it to the top of Mount Everest, and since then, I've just been on a journey to try to climb mountains. And while I'm actively training for Denali, I learned within the 5 years, almost 6 years now of being diagnosed, that I will really want to get to these mountains, but it's about the journey that gets me there. As I'm sure you can relate to, I
Mhm.
have learned a lot about my body and the health that needs to go in order for me to get to those places. So
Right.
basketball is your why, and I think it's very inspirational for people to have a why. One
Yep.
that, I mean, we're talking about on a sports podcast where sports is a beautiful why because you have a mission and you have a goal.
Right.
You
Right.
said
Right.
that your dad was great as a awesome guide for you, especially with type
Mhm.
1 diabetes. When it comes to basketball, who was your inspiration? Even if they didn't have type 1 diabetes, because you said there's only been 3 players. So
Right.
who was, as a kid growing up, who was that basketball player that made you want to play?
I was a Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant fan growing up.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I fell in love with the game at a very young age. My father was a welder on the Panama Canal, as well as an Olympic lifter and a cyclist.
For him.
So he built us a basketball hoop, and it was something that I fell in love with. I knew that's what I wanted to do. Yeah, watching a game NBA on NBC, the Bulls versus the Knicks, and I'm like, yeah, this is it.
You seem to have a good foundation by the time that you ended at UMass Amherst. Kobe was a huge inspiration to you. I saw a picture, you sent me a picture, I seen on social media a picture of you playing against Kobe.
Mhm,
So let's transition into your entry into the NBA. I
mhm.
mean, we can talk a little bit about, did you feel at that point in your life like you had type 1 under control? Was there ever a, not fear, but was there ever a concern as you were about to play at that next level up in professional basketball?
Nah, I had no fear. Like I said, I give all credit. I'm super fortunate to have, the family and my father that I did. He would always say, you're a Forbes, you're supposed to be, either you're supposed to have 30 points or you're supposed to be this good. You're supposed to, get these good grades. And it was not necessarily being arrogant, but it was building, confidence in
Yeah.
whatever. If he told us if you're folding a piece of paper, that better be the best folded piece of paper that anybody. If we're competing against who folds the best piece of paper, you should be the best because you're a Forbes. And I think that was a key point in just my mindset
Mhm.
with um, you know, overcoming the challenge of playing with type 1 diabetes, the goal, I mean, the journey of getting to the NBA and all its, ups and downs, no pun intended.
Mhm.
But yeah, I remember it was my senior year. I got player of the year in the conference. I was, all American and all these different things, but I kept my diagnosis, very hidden. It wasn't like I was Adam Morrison. I didn't have to check my blood sugar on the bench or give myself insulin. We had a kind of a system where I had to be in the playing range in the glucose range of 160 to 180, which,
Yeah.
for the whole 2 years, I was usually always there, and check at halftime. And, we worked from there. So everything was always, turned out to be a really good numbers. And I was very good at managing it.
Mhm.
But I guess hiding or not, being very hesitant to speak out about it. In 2008, diabetes awareness isn't really prevalent at that point. And like you said, like I said, there's nobody else besides, Adam Morrison, who's, his own or his own person. And then you got me. And, I wasn't drafted. I had to go overseas for the first 2 years of my professional career. And it was actually the best thing because I was able to learn more about health, what I'm putting into my body, what foods do, how different foods are made, eating overseas, the amount of different um, things that they use in their food, or
Mhm.
carbs and how they synthesize are totally different. Um, so it was good learning about nutrition through, just experiencing and managing it in different countries by myself.
Yeah.
Not having a team doctor, having to go to the doctor, to the hospital in Italy, and then, wait and get tested. And obviously they had English speaking doctors, but it was different managing my diabetes in college versus managing it in these different countries. So yeah, it was a tough kind of experience to go through. Feeling that my dream was kind of, I didn't accomplish it, but I
Mhm.
luckily I have a never give up, optimistic attitude, and I just had a vision of that. I know that I'm gonna get to the NBA. And 2 years in playing overseas in Italy and Israel, and then after 2 years, I was able to sign with the Denver Nuggets.
to get to a point like the Denver Nuggets is an inspiration for anybody, let alone while you're personally managing type 1 diabetes, who's here, it's kind of, I look at it as like, yeah, it's kind of like a little friend you got
Yeah,
with you.
yeah.
And being Italian American, I can imagine that your time in Italy, you learned a lot about what pastas to and not to eat.
I actually, when I was playing in Italy, I was taking maybe like 30 units of Lantus at the time, and then
Yeah.
another, or maybe, no, I'm sorry, 40 units of Lantus at the time, and then another, I think I had a sliding scale from like 8 to 10 units per meal with carbs. And this is from what I was eating in America in college.
Yeah.
When I got over to Italy, I had a couple of, low blood sugar episodes the first couple of weeks of training camp. And obviously they really run you and you work really hard playing
Yeah.
overseas, 2-a-days and things like that. So I had to lower my, my insulin dosage by half for each one. So, which was really interesting, learning about, different foods and, kind of, it was almost made me feel, actually good because, I'm lowering how much insulin I'm taking. So now in my head, it's like, man, I'm getting healthier. Okay, let me just keep at this and, see where this takes me.
When you play basketball, I'd love to learn what, I mean, there is a lot that can affect your blood sugar. When I'm watching it on TV, I don't play basketball, so it's different while playing. But it seems like short sprints before a long period of time. You're kinda jogging back and forth from one side, you're stopping on, like, very quickly, but you're out there for a couple minutes at a time, and obviously the game goes on for an hour to 2 hours, even more sometimes. So
Mhm.
what like, I'd love to learn about what happens to your blood sugar during a game. Is it really a roller coaster, or because you're doing so much different, um anaerobic and aerobic activities, does it kinda stay steady between that 160 and 180 range?
I think for me it was a little bit different, depending on how much running or sprinting that I'm doing and how physical the game is. I have seen recently studies about, physicality kind of raises your, glucose numbers a lot more than just, all out sprinting and things like that. So, yeah, from my experiences, yeah, the more physical the game was, the more, towards the 180s it would be, the more up and down and, fast paced the game was, it would, get down to the 120s, 110s and things like that.
So it seems like obviously, I can't speak for it, but the balancing act of adrenaline and then
Yeah.
cardiovascular output.
Yeah.
Your time in overseas taught you to level up about food and health going into your time with the Denver Nuggets.
Mhm.
How was your NBA career and then post career as well? That whole time period for you, especially as technology probably got a little better. We're talking
Mhm.
into the 2010s now. CGMs are starting to come out.
Right.
Uh,
Again, then, getting, kind of back into the space where we have team doctors, and now obviously I'm in an investment into a company with the Denver Nuggets, so they want to make sure that I on top of my health, have the, right medicines. I'm always, they making sure I have glucose tablets, testers, all these different types of things. So it was great playing with the Denver Nuggets, as well as, all teams in the NBA was in my career. I think post career was when, things started to get a little challenging because I was still in the space of, just pricking my finger. I was very hesitant towards the, technology, and I had a really good handle on it. And then obviously playing overseas and, going through my own path of what, is the best, nutrient foods for my body, and just, I guess going down the rabbit hole in the sense of, trying different, lifestyle changes and things like that, plant-based or not, and things like that. I think that was, uh, an experience for me learning, like you said, even learning more about, myself and managing type 1 diabetes, and how important having a CGM, is. It's definitely has, helped me and saved me from a lot of, different, not so good choices that I've made without using or this technology and having CGM.
Did you have when you learned about your diet, did you have daily routines? What worked for your blood sugars to keep them stable? You mentioned plant-based. Obviously, this is just for you
Right.
personally. Your diet would
Yeah.
be very different than mine.
Yeah, that's I've definitely not I know that with, diabetes, everyone's body is totally different and reacts to certain foods totally different. But for me, yeah, eating, colorful foods, fruits and vegetables, plant-based foods are really, really good at, one, how I feel, and more importantly, and then two,
Yep.
I've seen the baseline and how, leveled out my glucose is compared to if I'm eating, the kind of processed foods or you know fried foods and things like that that are in usually in our very close vicinity to down the block, McDonald's and all these different kind of things. But yeah, I've seen a lot of good in how I feel, and like you said, everyone is different.
Yeah.
And I think it's good to I think it's good to have a lifestyle, especially exercise. I try to just I try to keep it as simple as possible with your health and wellness and what you do is get the right amount of sleep, get the right amount of fluid in your body, eat the best foods, the most organic, whole foods, and think good thoughts and exercise. I think that's like a baseline, and then you could get better as you go along, different lifestyle changes or different exercises, and you can go into your own rabbit hole, which I think everyone should, because
Yeah.
this is the only vessel you have. You only get this for a little bit of time, so you might as well take advantage of trying to optimize and make sure it works at the peak performance that it can be.
I really like how you put that, how our bodies obviously are a vessel, but don't be afraid to test your body with
Hmm.
what works best for you, not
Yep.
test your body with what clearly doesn't work.
Yeah, right.
Right.
Exactly. Exactly.
And I also really, really like how you say, think good. I think, no pun intended, but you embody the perfect example of connecting mind and body.
Yeah, it's huge. It's the connector. It's what drives everything. Yeah, I'm a huge believer in your perspective. Your perspective and your perception is your reality. So, if you think you aren't capable of, managing your blood sugar, then your experience will be situations and experiences where you find yourself in those challenges, and it's all a test, I believe. Just from my own experience, and I believe that everyone is capable of overcoming challenges. It takes a lot. There was a lot of people that were in my life experience that played a huge role in my success in sports, my overall success in life, and then even just helping manage my type 1 diabetes.
Mhm. Wonderfully said. And before we move on to what you're doing now in post basketball career, I'd love to hear about what was the coolest moment of your NBA career. If you narrowed it down to either a single game, a single play, what had to be the winner?
Two for me.
Okay.
One, obviously checking in the Staples Center and walking past Jack Nicholson and guarding Kobe Bryant the next possession down. So that was really, really surreal. I, I kind of don't. It didn't seem real, so it's
Yeah.
like I'm walking in a dream. But that
Yeah.
was cool, and probably I mean, Kobe is the ace, but Kobe is a great experience. But playing on Christmas Day and starting on Christmas in a Christmas Day game is something, that I grew up watching for
Mhm.
years, for a decade, decades or a decade and some change of watching NBA on Christmas. So to play in a game like that and have my entire family and friends watching me play on Christmas Day was really cool,
That's really awesome.
despite
And
despite the loss. Yeah.
But, I mean, I think especially when it comes to a sport like that, each game is unique, each game is different, and it's
Mhm.
almost a preparation for that game. It's a tradition that's really awesome that you
Yeah,
got to enjoy that.
yeah.
Talking with you, and you know a little bit about me, T1
Mhm,
determine what I'm trying to do. I am a storyteller. I love films. I grew up watching films. Movies really motivated me, and it wasn't until my diagnosis that I started learning about documentaries. The podcast wave started coming out, and though we're not there yet, each podcast keeps on getting a little better and better.
mhm,
And I really love stories. I love finding people's stories. I love creating stories, and I just love delving into a universe that is real, fictional, everything, the whole well-roundedness.
mhm,
You yourself are a storyteller as well, with your mission that you link closely to persevering with type 1 diabetes. It's a
mhm.
comic book series called The Soul Survivors.
Yeah, the Soul Survivors is my baby, my passion project, my why, my purpose.
Mhm,
Created it towards the end of my basketball career because wanted to figure out what my purpose was. What's like, why am I here? I've always felt that my life was much bigger than the typical getting a job, working till whatever age, retiring. I don't know. I just felt like I had a different path, and I know I had an imprint that I had to leave on this earth or this plane of existence. So my father made sure I believed in myself this highly.
yeah,
So I have to prove myself right in a sense. So I wanted to figure out why was I given the challenge. So I'm one of six. I have four brothers, one sister. So I wanted to figure out, it's like, why out of the six kids, was I the only one that was given the challenge? Not so much in the sense of why me. It's like, all
mhm,
right, what's the story behind it? What do I have to do? And then I also looked at all the challenges that I face, having six knee surgeries, being in a diabetic coma, and having just the different challenges and experiences managing type 1 diabetes, and then overcoming these challenges. It's like, all right, what's the story behind all of this? What am I supposed to do? And then I looked at all the feel good cartoons and stories I watched growing up, X-Men, Thundercats, Conan, and all these different things. And I looked at what was, how people felt, especially in health and wellness and healthcare. And there was nothing that was geared around child health care and kind of promoting um, not only just empathy but positivity and empowerment to these children that are going through these chronic health conditions. So my goal is to create a superhero for every single childhood health challenge, kind of like a big Marvel universe ecosystem.
yeah,
We have 3 volumes out currently right now. The goal is just as any X-Men, Marvel, comic line. I have a great amount of ideas, especially in the health, gamifying health and wellness with the soul survivors, and making making health and wellness fun for children, kind of meeting them at their level. Going to a doctor for an 8 or 10-year-old, maybe not. They aren't really paying attention to what the doctor's saying. Maybe it's not resonating the right way. How the doctor's explaining it, they don't feel that the conversation resonates, and then even the maybe the fear or the worry from the parents even plays even a role as well, because I'm sure any parent dealing with a child with a chronic health challenges has to be going through an immense amount of emotions. So that can also play a part in it. So that creating the soul survivors was to you know take that space of empowerment and confidence and showing that these children can overcome the challenges, and making it an important part of, health, learning and being aware of health. I think it can remove stigma. It can promote inclusion. It can connect the the gap that's there between community and doctors and pharmaceutical companies, because
Mhm.
there is a lack of trust and there is a lack of connection, especially in underserved communities. And I know that Soul Survivors is that face for every single organization, and to be that representation and that face in a different way.
I think it's so important for kids to learn about health, whether they have a chronic condition or not. And growing up with, I did not, and you did not grow up with type 1 diabetes. But for those growing up with type 1 diabetes, we hear a lot often about how normal you can be with diabetes if you manage your
Mhm.
insulin properly,
Mhm.
but you take also a perspective on top of that of, "Hey, this is really a superpower. You have a gift. You have an opportunity to hone in on your health in
Mhm.
a way that nobody else would imagine that they could." So I really, really respect the idea that it just you have a kid that can look at these stories and feel as if they're the superhero of it.
Yep, that was exactly, my premise, in different ways. And then, I see a vision where the kid that was unfortunately getting bullied in school for whatever case with cancer or something like that. Now he's the cool kid because everyone loves, the superhero that's on the Soul Survivors with, that's managing, cancer as their superpower.
Yeah. Yep. Did you in your stories, did you take a lot of personal experience to put into them? What was some of your
Yeah.
motivation for the scenes and the plots that went into it?
Just I have a very I guess imaginative I guess vision board of a mind.
Mhm.
So just like experiences, watching, different anime cartoons and different shows, and just looking at all the different comics and cartoons that I watched growing up, and just taking little bits and pieces of different areas, and then, like you said, my own experience of traveling the world in different spaces, different meeting different people, seeing different things, and yeah, I have a long way to go to, where the end of the Soul Survivors, and there may be no end,
Yeah.
where the end of the Soul Survivors goes with this story.
Being in the film industry, there is a little secret out there for television shows, and the secret is that there is never an end, which
Yeah,
is great because in theory, the television show can always continue.
yeah,
Um, Also, the fact that you have an international perspective, especially on food and health, I think brings a well-rounded view to the concept.
yeah, yeah. Like I think I know that Soul Survivors is that connector for health. Like, maybe, children don't want to eat colorful foods or their vegetables or fruits or things like that, whatever. Having a character that empowers them and represents them, I think is a easy hook to, get them, better aware of their health, and just, become more engulfed in making sure that they can be the best optimum and positive self.
You yourself are a recent father.
Mhm.
How
It's
has becoming a father as a type 1 diabetic, especially when you've lost the sleep with an infant, but, but on top of that, just managing yourself while now you have another focus, and it seems you're very oriented towards kids, especially with the comic book series, but
Mhm,
now you're not only worried about your own health, you're worried
mhm.
about your child's health as well.
Yeah, I wouldn't use the word worry, because
Okay.
I don't wanna put like a negative, and it's for everyone.
Yeah.
It's like every day is a challenge, managing my type 1 diabetes along with being a father is a whole new experience for me, and it's exciting, actually. And I look at it that way. It's like, man, I get an opportunity to figure this out, to feel. I mean, if you look at it if you look at it this way, it's like, all right, if I'm able to manage my blood sugar and be uh the best possible person, energy wise, nutrition wise, that I can be managing my type 1 diabetes and be a great dad. It's like that feels good. So, I'm looking for that feel good feeling in a sense from, doing the best possible things that I can do. Whether it be, if I don't get enough sleep due to my, due to managing, to, my son waking up early hours. I always like to just look at the positive of it. This
Yeah.
won't last this won't last forever, a long time, and then I kind of play it back to having basketball. It's like, man, I used to wake up at, 3 a.m., 4 a.m. to go to the gym. This is like kind of the same thing. I always try to find that silver lining to make to kind of take away, any possible mental stress that could occur. Yeah, and I just try to, I want to make people look deeper into themselves and feel empowered and feel confident that they can, overcome any challenge and kind of look for that external because there's so many different motivators. Like I said, greatness leaves clues.
Mhm.
And I'm big on cliches. Like I think like cliches are there for a reason. Hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. That's an actual thing. I'm a living testament of it. Doubt your doubts before you doubt your faith is something that I have in my book. It's just the power of the mind. My dad was super big on that. And one of my favorite ones that I have in my book is your present situation is not your final destination. So whatever you're going through at the present moment, that's not the end all be all. And I know that, the human being is, creator. We're on a computer right now that was created by someone's thought. My computer's on the table right now. I have this shirt on. So everything started with a thought. So, we're actual creators of our own experience. So if we're able to do that, for those who have children, um, I just created a human replica of myself. With help for
Yep.
sure.
Yep.
Uh, but I kind of like almost like I think about life in a childlike form. It's like, man, if I could create almost like a twin of myself, like how can I not manage this health challenge with my body and with my mind.
That's amazingly put. I think from talking to you today, you're giving me a different perspective that I'm gonna take in. I'm gonna be a lot happier.
Yeah,
I'm very to be completely honest, and I'm not afraid to be honest about this. I am very tough on myself,
right.
and this experience of speaking with you and the T1 Determined podcast and the T1 Determined mission as a whole has taught me to have patience with myself.
Yep.
How important do you think patience is?
It's immense, immense. I mean, I've been to take it for. I mean, to give an example, obviously being patient, to work diligently and constantly every day to get that call to play with the Denver Nuggets. That was decades from 4 years old, where I fell in love with the game of basketball, to 20 years later, signing my first contract in the NBA, and then even my after sports, life with soul survivors and creating this passion project. I thought of this concept in 2017 and to publish my first book in 2023 and to even now continuing my mission and the expansion of this platform. It's a testament to patience, resilience. I have a never give up attitude. My dad's one of his quotes was, plan A is plan A, plan B
Yep.
all the way to Z is to make plan A work. There is no plan B. Plan B is plan B all the way to Z is plan A.
Yep.
So, somehow, some way, there's always a way to, figure things out. Just have to be open to receive it. You have to visualize it. Like I said, we are creators, so the things that you think about, do come to reality.
Perspective and perseverance
Mhm.
from your time playing at University of Virginia to being diagnosed with type 1 diabetes to then being an all-time player at the University of Massachusetts, going on to play internationally, being in the NBA with the Denver Nuggets, and then being ultimately a storyteller that links a multitude of platforms from cartoons to visual book reading that is built to inspire and motivate kids and adults while you're managing the type 1 diabetes. I think you're an emblem and a living example of what we should all look for and aspire to. I really, really appreciate the insight, the information, and then just the positive vibes that you have brought to me today.
Man, I humbly appreciate that. Thank you so much, man.
If for those type 1 diabetics who are reaching for that goal, and I think you talked a lot about this, but to just one final hit, whether they're newly diagnosed or they've been living with type 1 diabetes for 20 to 40 years, what is a final message that you would, from your experience, but also from your others' experience, as well as you stated, it's a whole community. It takes a village to raise one kid. What would be a final message that you'd like to say?
Man, I'm big on the power of the mind. I'm
Mm.
actually like living proof of it. I just look at life in a different way. I try to be very aware of, the omens, signs, and things like that. I'm actually in search for those things, and I think the fact that I'm in search for those things and I'm aware of the opportunity of those things coming into my direction, I think I see those and I'm able to experience that. Matt, I'm so big on your mind over matter, but one kind of phrase or one key point I would leave with everyone is, if you think you can, you are right. If you think you can't, you're also right. So it's a 50-50 decision, almost like I always thought with basketball. Once it leaves my hand, it's 50-50, and that's a great percentage. So but with your mind, it's what you think about, it's what you put into your mind. And if you think you can, manage and do great things, you are guaranteed to do those things. That's it.
You are an example again and the definition of somebody who is T1 determined. So, Gary, I cannot thank you
I
enough
love
for.
that. That was a great finish line. That was like a mic drop right there.
Cool. I actually have not used that yet, so you should
That
feel
was,
proud that you were the first person
that
to
was
get that
fire.
mic
That was
drop.
fire. That was fire. I love that. I love that.
Well, thank you for speaking with me today, Gary.
Man, I appreciate you. Thank you, and I wish you nothing but the best and a great amount and abundance of success with this podcast, and spreading the message, spreading awareness, spreading love, spreading positivity around the world, and you know, definitely take a. I may want to join you on a lower rock climb, on a lower hike. Just to
You don't
get
wanna go
started
to
first.
Alaska?
I mean, just to get started first, let me get my bearings,
Okay,
together
alright.
first, and let me test
Well,
it out.
we're gonna have to plan that. Maybe we'll do Mount Washington, which does see some pretty intense weather, but we'll look at the forecast and
As long
make
as
sure
long
to
as we
join you
could
for
as
that.
long as we could snowboard from the top, I'll be cool.
Alright, perfect. We can definitely
Perfect.
do that.
Yeah.
Thank you for tuning in to my conversation with Gary Forbes. It's been a true honor to learn from Gary about the incredible discipline and positive mindset it takes to navigate type 1 diabetes, not just in the demanding world of professional basketball, but also in his inspiring journey into literature. Gary, thank you for sharing your experiences and inspiring us T1D athletes. You can follow Gary on social media at GaryForbes_, and his Soul Survivors mission at The Soul Survivors and thesoulsurvivors.com, with soul spelled as SOLE. We will also provide links. The Soul Survivors Volume 1 tells the story of 11 superhero child characters who go through major everyday struggles while battling chronic diseases such as cancer, diabetes, autism, cerebral palsy, and Crohn's disease. One special summer, they all travel to a summer camp on a distant planet where they face their toughest battles, all while training their minds and superpower abilities. I encourage you to check it out. If this episode resonated with you, please share it. Every share helps us reach more people who need to hear these stories and understand the science behind T1D and peak performance. For all our content, including details on our upcoming documentary, Low Blood Sugar at High Altitude, please visit t1determined.net. Connect with us on social media. Find us on Instagram, TikTok, and X at T1D T1_endurance, and Facebook at T1 Determined. We will have announcements soon on our expansion to more social platforms. Until next time, keep pushing your limits. I hope this helps. Stay strong, stay determined. T1 Determined.